Hello and welcome to this session of Wise Women Weekdays. Today I'm joined by Rhys, who's going to talk to us about Qigong, his story and energy. And I am Claire, the Oily Witch, and we'll do our best to keep you entertained for the next half an hour. So, Rhys, I invited you on here because you work with me in the Healing Collective, which is a collective of healers that come together to run healing events, to share with you, the general public, all the latest healing modalities for you to consider as the NHS literally crumbles. And what we're trying to do is pick up the slack from that. So if we can help people be well themselves, then it puts less pressure on the NHS so they can do the bits that we can't do, like surgery and things like that. And Rhys, in fact, you work for the NHS, you work with them, don't you?
I did work in the NHS for over 10 years. That's my background. I'm a physiotherapist. So actually the NHS also a huge part of our training process as junior physiotherapists. So I was raised, so to speak, within the NHS system. Yeah. And got a lot of love and a lot of time for the NHS, and really very fond of my memories working within the system and offering what I was able to offer to the public. And I guess for me, that's the beautiful thing about the NHS, is that you are able to offer a service to people who need it. And it is always people in need because you're dealing with the crisis of the public on a daily basis. And that's what I really got out of being a physiotherapist in the NHS, was able to give back to people that needed it in that moment when they're probably at the worst they've ever felt in their lives when they encounter you in a hospital. And to be able to give back, love, support, and knowledge in order to help people live their lives and recover from traumatic incidents, whether it be falling down the stairs or dealing with chronic illness, I found really empowering and powerful. And that's where my journey as a therapist and as a physiotherapist started. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. The NHS does so many wonderful things, but it also is taken advantage of by people not taking responsibility for their own health and well-being, because we've created a culture, unfortunately, where people think as soon as something's wrong, they can just go and get sorted by somebody else and not taking much responsibility for their part in that. Obviously, if people have accidents, they have accidents and there's nothing that can be done. Or as you said, degenerative disease, something like that, nothing you can do about that. But there are things you can do, and that's what we specialize in sharing with people, is what you can do for yourself. So, Rhys, you said you're working in the NHS as a physiotherapist, and now are you not working with them on some kind of study, which
Um,
I find interesting, which is still relevant?
so I'm doing a couple of things at the moment with the NHS. I'm still working in private hospitals, which I've worked part-time in a private hospital over a decade alongside my NHS career. And 4 years ago, I set up my own business, fusing my hobby and passion, which was Qigong and healing martial arts, movement art forms, with my physiotherapy. So to provide a holistic healing system, basically, for exactly what we're talking about, really, which is preventative medicine, preventative care, how to prehabilitate people or give people the knowledge and tools to be able to maintain their health themselves, so that people aren't living in a constant state where they're on the edge of crisis, where they constantly will need support from a system like the NHS. So what I'm doing now with the NHS, a couple of things. Firstly, I'm working with the local PCN, which is the primary care network, who have been set up to help. They're set up all over the country, so different regions have different PCNs. I'm working with the East Brighton PCN at the moment, and they are an organisation in place to link the NHS services such as GPs and hospitals with community services that may be run by, say, like NGOs or community organizations. And what I'm doing is providing a weekly mindful movement exercise class. So using Qigong as a modality, the idea being for this particular program is that we are treating mental health with a community outdoor exercise based solution to our community's mental health problems. So we meet in the park in East Brighton once a week. We do movement and breath work, and we also have a chat and a catch up. And there's myself, a physiotherapist, leading the session, and also a local GP who's there for any drop-in conversations that people may want to have afterwards. It's been really, really effective, and we've built a really nice community of people who are obviously benefiting from their mental health. But if you're doing exercise, you're also benefiting physically and emotionally from these art forms. So people are getting stronger, improving their balance, as well as getting in touch with their emotions and regulating their emotions and hormones through the breathwork and movement practice. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. And then I am planning, this is what you were also touching on, the other thing, I'm planning to set up a pilot study using Qigong as a treatment for Parkinson's disease. So this is a work in progress. It's been part of a journey that I've been on for, say, the last 7 years with a martial arts master from Hong Kong, who's developed a standardized Taichi and Qigong rehab program. And we are trying to bring these healing modalities of the East, which are really, once learned, are super accessible and very functional. You can fit them into your life in a 10-20 minute window on a daily basis. So what we're trying to do is use these systems now from the East, these healing modalities, and bring them into the West to treat, starting with Parkinson's disease, but then to, as I've spoken, treat our mental health problems, treat our physical health problems, improve cardiac and respiratory health, and everything along the way. Yeah. So they're the two things I'm working on.
I smiled because I was made and born in Hong Kong.
I
I was made there and born there, and I used to love saying that because remember the stamps you get, like made in China, made in Hong Kong. So 6 degrees of separation and all of that. And so, I mean, I think I've done one of your classes and I found it really challenging. Totally get why you're doing it and I want to do it. I wish I lived nearer you and then I'd be down the beach with you doing practice all the time, or, in Brighton going to one of these groups. Because I think for me, the breath work is so imperative, breath and movement, to kind of establishing a solid foundation for daily health and well-being. And I don't think we're just starting. The tide is turning where people are becoming more conscious of breath work. People that do meditation obviously are very aware of the importance of breath and yoga and things like that. But I think it's becoming more common knowledge that people need to pay attention to these things. Have you got any kind of quick movements you can demonstrate now, which are kind of really useful for people?
Yeah, sure. Right. So the key to Qigong really is synchronizing movement and breath. Push this back a little bit so you can see a little bit more of me. Synchronizing movement and breath. And there's obviously various levels of progression that get harder and harder and harder and harder. I find with my practice that every year I seem to be progressing, and I think, oh, actually last year I wasn't breathing properly, and now this year I am, and I'm sure I'll feel like that next year as well. So a very simple practice that we can start to do is just by regulating our breathing. So consciously or mechanically slowing our respiratory rate. So we start teeth closed, tongue on the roof of the mouth. And we'll put our hands just below the belly button, and we're going to take a deep inhale in through the nose and out through the nose. And what we're aiming for there is about 6 to 8 seconds each direction. As we inhale, pull the belly button in slightly. Deep inhale. And exhale, let go, relax. One more time. And exhale. And as you start to slow the breathing, it should become easier and easier to hold those longer inhales and exhales. So we'll just add the hands now. We use the hands to guide the breath. We inhale, relax the shoulders, lift up to the chest. Open the chest, turn the palms, exhale, push down. Turn the palms up, inhale, lift through the body. Exhale. We'll do 3 more big breaths. 1. 2, big inhale through the nose. And 3. Exhale all the way out, release. And just relax now and observe the body. A couple of things are happening here. When we are consciously changing our breathing mechanics, so mechanically slowing down the breath, which we can all do, we start to shift into a more relaxed state. So if we're rapidly shallow breathing, which many of us do in states of stress, anxiety, etc., we are telling our body that we're unsafe. We're telling our body that we're tense. We're telling our nervous system that we're unsafe. We're in a fight or flight response, effectively. So simply by slowing down the breath, we are then telling the body that we're safe. Because slow breathing denotes relaxation, denotes safety within the body. So if we're feeling stressed or anxious or overwhelmed, 8 to 10 slow and consciously slow breaths will actually start to shift the way that our nervous system is responding in that situation, to help to rebalance what's going on with our hormones in our endocrine system, and therefore tell the body that we are in a safe space, and the body will chemically respond in that way as well as emotionally respond to come into a space of more safety, more calmness, more clarity. So practically this can be used anytime. It takes about a minute. You're looking at about 6 breaths per minute if you're doing it at that speed. Optimum is about 5.8, and you can go even slower if you want, all the way down to sort of a breath per minute if you want to do 30-second inhale, exhale, which takes a lot of training. The other thing we're doing is by nasal breathing, we are increasing the pressure that we can create in the lungs so we can take deeper breaths. And also through the nose, in the sinuses, we release nitric oxide, which helps vasodilate, that is, expand our vasculature, our capillaries, our nerves, and our blood vessels. So we are reducing the load on the heart, because the heart isn't trying to squeeze blood through very narrow veins, capillaries, and arteries, and therefore also hyper-oxygenating the body. So by breathing like this, we reduce the stress on multiple systems within our body. That's the basics of Qigong. There's lots more to it, lots more bigger, grounder movements as well, with more complexity, which then start to have other benefits on the body, both from a mechanical perspective and from an energetic or Chinese medicine perspective, working on the meridian system. So Qigong can almost be seen like acupuncture without needles, for one way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I find it so interesting because on my spiritual journey, I now move. I do exercises every morning and I'm moving the energies around as I call in the elements. So as a witch, I'm always working with the elementals. And it's like, it's the same kind of principles of the breathing and the bringing in. And, I just let my body, like, it directs its own kind of journey through and sees the elements in different ways. And my hands are doing movements. And I was watching one of those programs that pop up on, Facebook has these videos that pop up. And it was an 80s or a 90s rave. And obviously everybody's off their faces, but they're all doing the same thing. And it's because they're bringing in, it's all of this. It's like the energies, and there's a recognition that the East is very aware of the fact that, we think that there's nothing around us, but actually air is like a soup of energy and things like that. And that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
We're pulling it in, we're moving it through, we're recognizing it. And it's really beautiful. It's like a symphony, isn't it? When you're moving and breathing. And I mean, it looks beautiful as well. And you hold some very strong poses, don't you? So tell us about your version of Qigong, because obviously, like everything, there's so many different versions of it. So what makes yours?
So I love what you just said there about the energy and the movement, and particularly from your perspective, how you use it as a witch, connecting with sort of the elemental energies. And this is where Qigong started in China. We have about 5,000 years worth of written manuscripts on Qigong, both from the Taoists and the Buddhists. And the original movements were nature observations and replication of nature, whether that be a spring or a stream running or an animal in movement or a seasonal change. And the system that I practice is Shaolin Qigong. I also do some Tai Chi as well, slightly different system. And they overlap and intertwine and teach you different things and have different principles. The Shaolin are Buddhist monks, as many people know, and they use Qigong as a healing system, as part of their Shaolin Kung Fu or Wushu, which is Kung Fu means hard work, actually. It doesn't mean combat. Wushu is the combat. Hard work is Kung Fu, Gong Fu, and Qigong is energy work or breath work. And the two halves create the yin and yang, the external and the internal. So for a Shaolin monk, their training is incomplete if they aren't doing the inner work, the healing work, the energy work with the Qigong. It's not all about breaking rods on your head and smashing bricks, but it's also about becoming soft and looking internally. And you're right, a lot of what I do is very powerful. There's some very strong poses. And like many are exposed to yoga in the West, and like yoga, there's a lot of strong postures which are designed to help strengthen the body. From my perspective with Qigong, how can one expect to gain better physical health from the system if all we do is very soft, gentle movements? There has to be a strengthening of the body. There has to be a nourishing of the yang, the external, the powerful, in balance with the yin, the internal, for the system to be complete and therefore fully nourish the body. So the Shaolin system has a lot of powerful breath work within it, as well as powerful postures, poses, different ways to breathe, different ways to exert power. And this is how I use it. So I use it as an adjunct to meditation and an adjunct to hard physical training, and as an adjunct to my own spiritual practices as well. So it really, for me, it covers a huge range of elements in my life, as well as obviously my physiotherapy practice as well. So it can be an adjunct to rehabilitation and to healing for others.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive. And I think that more and more people are getting into these forms of physical, I want to say physical work, really. I'm not going to say physical exercise, because it's more than that. It's like the understanding that the spiritual work has to be with the body as well. And what I want, it doesn't, I think we're so used to everything being polarized. Oh, your mental health's over here, your physical health's over here. And then your spiritual health is probably not even here, because we don't want you to have that unless you're going to do what we're telling you to do. So, we're trying to bring it all together. And there's this kind of, a universal collaboration on the fact that this integration around all these different parts, and certainly your practice is embodying those things, isn't it? And what I wanted to talk about now was something that's come up for, like, I work with a spiritual coach in Canada. We work together, and we talk about the universe, and I will interview him on this channel in time. But we're saying that we look at the world at the moment and we say the divine feminine, there needs to be a return of the divine feminine power, because women haven't, certainly in this culture, had any power for over 2,000 years. We've literally, everything that we hold naturally, like our psychic abilities, our intuition, etc., have been damned and lessened. And we've had this patriarchal system. But Jeffrey and I were discussing the fact that the divine masculine has been corrupted in the process as well, because the divine masculine is not the kind of toxic masculine, which is this kind of need to control, from fear, from feeling powerless. The divine masculine is a need for action that is positive, with no expectation over the outcome, just happy that there is even an outcome. And I would have thought that that is a language you can relate to with your practice and your spirituality.
Definitely. There seems to be an imbalance at the moment in society of the two, and maybe the two are also being played off against one another, the divine masculine, divine feminine, and being led in slightly different directions. Again, for me and from my perspective as a practitioner of Shaolin arts, it would boil down to yin and yang and the balance between the two. We can see yin in one way as being feminine, and we can see the yang as the masculine. And as we know from the yin and yang symbol, which is, if anyone doesn't know, it's the circle. One half is white, one half is black, but within the black there is a white circle, within the white there is a black circle, and that shows that there is also yang within yin and yin within yang. We need to find harmony between these two, whether we see them as masculine and feminine, light and dark. I don't like good and evil so much in that portrayal, but it also can work. Again, we're looking at sort of dualities and opposites. There has to be a solid balance for the two to work properly, and within the feminine there has to be an element of the masculine, and within the masculine there has to be an element of the feminine for that harmony to be complete. By doing these sorts of practices, the spiritual element comes in whether you want to or not. That's what I've found, is that I started from a place of wanting to meditate. That's where my Tai Chi journey started. It took me far deeper than I ever anticipated it would. Although it's a physical practice, the mystical, once practiced long enough, the mystical becomes undeniable for the practitioner. Which has been powerful for me. Like you said, I think a lot of our spiritual nature in this reality is being misguided or obscured, and we're maybe suggested not to, particularly in sort of the modern scientific atheistic world. We are led towards an idea of not having any kind of spiritual understanding of our existence. By practicing these sorts of practices, whichever your chosen practice may be, we become closer and closer and closer to the spiritual nature, the energetic nature of reality. And although it's subjective to the practitioner, it's undeniable to the practitioner. And I think by using these sorts of practices, we can become more deeply connected with both the masculine and feminine, and also start to see that it is one. It's a union.
That's well put. And what I would say, I remember you saying this to me when we were discussing what you did, and possibly one of the first times we met, and you said to me that it's imperative from your perspective that we learn to work with the body, and we strengthen the body before we start looking at the kind of emotions and the psyche. Because if you strengthen the body and you create this healthy, strong vessel, you are then able to cope with the mind. Would that be a fair interpretation of what you said?
Definitely, yes, that would be. That's the way the Shaolin look at this, is that to be able to delve into the depths of yin practice, the internal practices, we must have a strong yang foundation. And you look at children as an example, they're all yang. All they do is yang, running around, playing, jumping, whatever it is. It's all explosive, it's all out there, and children need that. And what they're doing is developing the yang, developing the physical strength in the body through constant play, constant movement. I think if we didn't have that as children, then we wouldn't have the preparation for when we become older and we start becoming more introspective, and we start to, like teenagers, for example, start to process emotions differently and start to become more aware of the self. So almost childhood, in a way, is a preparation for this this process of turning yang into yin and then harmonizing the two. And through hard physical training and exercise, we develop mental resilience. And with that mental resilience, we can then start to delve into the deeper realms of energy work, into deeper realms of meditation, deeper realms of spirituality. And I think without that physical strength and the mental resilience that's built through it, it's very hard to navigate that internal space without that solid grounding. And I like you use the term vessel there. That's almost ancient Egyptian alchemy, understanding of turning the body into a physical vessel for the soul to transcend karmic rebirth.
Yeah, absolutely. Though the human journey is a human journey. It's finding the balance between the spiritual divine self that basically is universal and kind of, full of love and understanding, and then the human gritty experience of the world in which we live in. And sometimes certainly from a healer's perspective, sometimes the unification of that is quite difficult. Like, and being human and messy and all of it. But at least there is things like Qigong, and there are people like Rhys who can help you to learn to work with the energies and make greater relationship with your physical body, and indeed build your strength in a sensuous and that wasn't the word I was looking for, but what I meant was in a kind of in a well-structured way, but in a kind of not in a rush. What's the word I'm looking for? In a kind of, informative, like, anyway. Have you got the word, Rhys?
I'm not quite sure. No, I can't find it either.
Okay, well, I'm not playing charades with you in the future, but what I mean is, like, it takes time, doesn't it? What I mean is practice. You're not expecting people, it's not like the gym where they can be lifting weights really quickly if they work there every day. It takes a long time. Build the lungs. It's a slow and gentle. That's what I mean. It's slow, it's gentle, but it's strong at the same time.
And it's natural. It's part of the process. We can't hope to sit in meditation and suddenly, have an experience with the divine without doing the work first. Without, it's never. I'm sure everyone's had that experience in meditation. They think, oh, I'll learn to meditate and I'll have these transcendent mystical experiences all the time. And most of the time, you're just listening to your brain talking to you, going, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? What about that person at work that irritates you? Usually, meditative practices and spiritual practices are very unspiritual and can be quite mundane and boring when you're in the depths of it, trying to sit there with yourself. These practices offer some structure and offer a pathway of I guess nurturing, to nurture the body, nurture the spirit, and nurture the mind, so that you can become more receptive and more in tune, maybe more sensitive to the divine and to mystical experiences and levels of understanding, so that they do become profound. Because often the most profound messages are so quiet and subtle that we miss them. And if we haven't trained ourselves to a point where we can pick up those subtleties, it's like a musician. Some people are born with the ability to hear and write music and play music from ear, but many musicians have to learn the whole process to hear those subtleties in a piece of music, different instruments, different notes. And it's the same with the spiritual and energetic body. If we're not tuned in, and many of us aren't, for multiple reasons, distraction is one. If we're not tuned in, then we'll never hear those subtle changes, those subtle messages. Brilliant. So these systems provide structure to build the body, to build the mind, to build the spirit, so that we can then engage in the higher level spiritual practices, which is the alchemy of the soul, the path towards enlightenment. But we can't expect to become enlightened just by holding a crystal and sitting on our sofa and hoping for the best. But there's got to be some nurturing and nourishment first, like you said.
Yeah, take your body with you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking your body on the journey, and that's basically what you're all about. So in the information underneath the video, we'll get Rhys to tell us when his classes are and how you can get more information from Rhys about what he does. Do you do online classes, Rhys?
I do 2 online sessions a week, Monday evenings and Thursday mornings, with a very dedicated small group of practitioners who join me for those sessions. And I'm teaching up and down the Sussex coast, New Haven, Saltdean and Brighton at the moment. And I'm looking for a space in Lewes as well to start doing an evening class. Yeah, I know that's might be a bit closer to you, Claire. Slowly, finding what works and where I'm needed.
Fantastic. Well, Watch this space, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, Rhys, for coming on Wise Women Weekdays. And please, everybody else, if you could like and subscribe, that would be amazing, because we've got more of these wonderful people to share their wisdom with you. Have a blessed day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. Take care. Have a lovely day.